Good morning. It's really wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you had a good week. We had a kind of crazy week. We had a lot of things happen this week. We started the marriage course. So congratulations to the couples who have embarked on their journey of the marriage course. I hope that's really beneficial for everybody attending. And if you missed out this time, remember to sign up next time. My boys had their birthday yesterday. They turned 11 years old. And it's just mind-blowing to me because when we moved here almost in about 4 days, it will be our 6-year anniversary of moving here. And when we moved here, they had just turned 5 years old. And they were just little cutie kindergartners, and now they're practically teenagers. So it's just amazing what the things we go through in our life and the seasons we go through and the different events that happen. But today, I want to talk about how our life of faith gives us power. And that having faith in God, having faith in a greater purpose than ourselves, having faith that there are spiritual laws in motion, aside from just the physical reality that we see, actually gives us power in our daily life, in our physical reality. It gives us conviction. So I want to start with a quote from Philippians. Here we go. 4:12 and 13. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. I really like this quote because it doesn't ignore the realities that we face in our life. Sometimes we have plenty, and sometimes we're lacking. Sometimes we're rich in money and lacking in relationships. Sometimes we're rich in relationships, but we could really use a little extra cash. It doesn't ignore the road bumps or the things that we face in our life, but it's cluing us in to the fact that those aren't the things that determine our actual experience of our life. That there's something higher, something deeper, something more that can give us peace, that can give us happiness in any situation in our life. And it's through our relationship with God. So when I was thinking about this and what is the difference between letting our circumstances drive my emotions and my feelings over me being like empowered or not being tossed about by the waves that we face. It actually made me remember my experience in college. I took a religions class. And this was just a community college class, and I was expecting to go in and learn about all the different religions, Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism, and I did. But what I really loved about this class was that our teacher his focus actually wasn't teaching us the specifics and having us memorize the different names of Buddha or what year, Christianity became an official religion, or that wasn't his focus. His focus was that actually all human beings seek religious experience. And when I say religious experience, it doesn't mean, we think many times we take religious experience, we think, oh, that's going to church, or that's doing vows, or that's offering, that's doing the rosary, or that's giving my donation, and that's what religious people do, so that's a religious experience. But from the very beginning, my religions teacher made it very clear. A religious experience, those things can create space for a religious experience, but they do not define what a religious experience is. A religious experience is when we touch the divine. We have an experience with God and we know that it was God. And a religious experience can be when we connect with an overwhelming love and a realization that I am the universe and the universe is me. And it doesn't have to be tied to actually anything that we're experiencing right in front of us. We don't have to be in the perfect moment, in the perfect place, everything going well in our life to have this religious experience. So in our class, he was always encouraging us to, he actually had, the first day we came in, and he was like, all right, I want everybody to go back out of the classroom and come back in one at a time. And as you come, be aware of every step that you take. Don't rush to your desk and throw your bag down. You know, take one step at a time and do it mindfully. I'm not saying that you're going to meet God through that, but that when you do that, you create a little bit of space. And God might come in. He was always encouraging us to be mindful, to create a space for the divine, for a religious experience. But it was hard because when I get there, sometimes I was 2 minutes late and I wanted to rush to my desk and I wanted to pull out all my stuff and look like I was ready, you know? But that really wasn't what he was looking for. But it's so easy to get caught up in the moment of the things that I'm behind on, the things that I should do, the things I should have already had done last week. And it's like we're drowning in it or crowded by it. And it's very hard to create a space for God when we're caught up in our circumstances. It's easy to get caught up in the moment. It's easy to just see what's right in front of our face. It's easy to focus on our challenges. And on the other hand, it's also easy to get caught up in my own accomplishments or the things that I've done. Look what I've done in my life or how good I am. But when these things are all that we're looking at, then we actually act like most people in this world act. We act centered on ourselves and on the things that are going on around us. So then how do we take it from just our day-to-day happenings and, quite honestly, our self-centeredness and have a bigger perspective? One that encompasses not only the world that we're living in now and what we see right in front of us, but also the spiritual world, the spiritual laws that are taking place right alongside the physical laws, but we're just not as aware of them. When we can do that, we become capable to take new actions and have new attitudes, even if our actual circumstances haven't changed at all. That is really what I want to focus on in this message, that it's our faith of being in God, of being able to look outside of what's right in front of me, that actually gives me power to be more effective in what's right in front of me. When we take these actions with faith, and the tricky part is that you have to have a little bit of faith first, because the experiences won't come without acting in faith. Otherwise, we have no reason to take those actions. We have no reason to love beyond what's reasonable to love. We have no reason to give what's beyond reasonable to give, unless we believe that there's a purpose for it, or that God will work through it, or that we're making a good condition to come closer to God. But when we have those experiences, it's like a light bulb goes on. Those experiences give us conviction and can open the door for a religious experience. So I actually think a lot about our founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, our true parents, because just like this, they had times of plenty and they had times of want. There were times when they were literally starving and times when their plates were full. They had times when they had hundreds of followers who were inspired by the message and willing to go out and give their life. And then there had times when all of them would turn their back on them. They had the joy of giving birth and having many children, and then they had the sorrow of them passing away. They're human beings just like us, right? Our true parents went through, true mother is still going through this life just like we are. There's reality there. But when I see them and I see the life that they've lived, although they live in reality, their experience of this world is not defined by their reality. It's like they, while having to deal with reality, still created their spiritual reality. And then they expanded that not just for themselves, but for all of us, showing us how to do that. And they could create a religious experience. They could find God in almost any circumstance, whether they were fishing in 100% humidity and 98 degrees down in South America, or up in Kodiak, Alaska, when there's ice, forming on their hair. They had religious experience when they sent their children to spiritual world. But it's not their experiences that created, not their environment who created what they were, right? It was their relationship with God that allowed them to create a new spiritual reality. So the point is that we don't get to have a religious experience by getting overwhelmed by our situation, by reacting to what's going on in our life or what's happening around me. That's why I feel like there's kind of two camps in a lot of people's lives. There's that type that's just like, feels like they're constantly getting bowled over by the waves and like always two steps behind. And then there's actually a completely different type of person who, to avoid that, controls everything. Do you know the type of people who try to control all the circumstances to work out just the way they want them, to try to manage people so that they don't upset that person, so that everything will be just right? A little bit manipulative sometimes, so that everything works out just right for them. A lot of people are at one of these two extremes, either having no anchor, just getting tossed around by life, or micromanaging and not allowing any space for God to work. But that's what people do when we don't understand that God is our parent, because we feel like we don't have any control. So we either give up to the circumstances of life or we try to control everything. That's what seems to be the natural thing to do if our time in this world is just a physical experience. But it's not. So I love the analogies that our true parents give us. True Father often talked about our life as just being one of multiple stages. And I'm going to share a couple of the quotes, but it helps us it's a reminder to not get too overwhelmed by the situation that we're in, but to take on a perspective that is greater than the situation. So I'm just going to let the words speak for themselves here. Human life can be compared to the life a fetus lives in the mother's womb. People will live a 100-year span in the womb of the universal mother. Just as the fetus is ignorant of the world outside the mother's womb, the people living a physical life today are ignorant of the reality of the spirit world that awaits them after death. They can venture a guess. They have a vague sense that just as they did not know about the human world while in the mother's womb, a world after death must also exist. Regardless of people's feelings or convictions concerning the world after death, the spirit world really does exist. Because the world after death cannot be perceived by our five senses, we must overcome the unbelievable through religious faith. And then I have one more here, along the same vein of thought. We live in this world, but it is not everything. This world is not everything. There is the spirit world. And I like to point out that in some ways here, he's talking about these three stages of life, of being in the womb, living in this physical world, and then going to the spiritual world, but also realizing that spiritual world and spiritual laws are going on in tandem with our physical lives. So it's not just something we wait for at the end, but it's something that we're actually actively participating in right now. Then what is the place we are to go to and live in? It is the eternal spirit world filled with the air of love. Our physical life is a time of preparation for life in the eternal world of spirit. And, if you study the development of an embryo and a fetus before a baby is born, there are all these things that throughout these 9 months that are developing over time. There's the heart, learning how to pump. There's lungs developing. Even though when the baby's in the womb, there is no need for lungs because there's no oxygen to breathe in the mother's womb. There's no, their eyes are forming and they're blinking. They're actually learning how to suck their thumb in the mother's womb to learn how to feed themselves when they come out. But from just the perspective of the world that they're living in, there's actually no need for eyes, for lungs, for a sucking reflex. Those things are only needed in the next world. But if they didn't develop those things as a baby, then there's difficulty when they're born, right? We don't realize, and also as a parent, when you're pregnant or when your wife is pregnant, from a parent's perspective, you know what's going to happen to your baby, right? You know they're going to be born. You know they're not going to like it when they come out. But you know why and how they're developing in preparation. And as a parent, you also do your best to prepare the environment for the baby before it comes. Eat healthy, get exercise, prepare the nursery, everything the parent is preparing for when the baby comes. I think God is like that towards us in this world. In some ways, we're just like little fetuses in this physical world, and we're dealing with life here like that's all there is. Baby in the womb doesn't think about, what's going to happen in 2 months? They just absorb nutrition and everything that they need from their mother, and they exist like that. But I think from God's perspective, he's looking at us and thinking, what do we need to develop to be spiritually mature, spiritually ready for the next world? And honestly, to be very happy in this world, because I don't think it's just a linear thing of, being in the womb, being in the physical world, being in the spirit world. But I think God actually intended for us to have a reward here, not just reward when we go to heaven, but to actually experience what heaven would be like here. So God is encouraging us, just like in the womb we have to develop our lungs, right? God is encouraging us, grow your heart. Learn how to love the difficult people. Learn how to give. Don't just give the 20 cents to the homeless guy when you stop at the corner. Give him a $5 bill. Give what's beyond comfortable. Don't just love the people who are easy to love. It's easy to love little children. They're so cute. When we went to Korea, the twins were less than 2 years old, and they were just so adorable. And it's so easy to love little kids. They were constantly getting candies and crackers. On the subway, we'd turn around for 5 seconds and turn back, and our kids' hands would be full of apples and cookies and things, because people were they're constantly, it's easy to give to kids, right? But don't just give to those who it's easy to give to. Who's somebody that you would rather not see? Oh, I hope this person's not at work today. It would make my day so much easier. If we're just looking at our life from a materialistic perspective, there would be no reason to give extra, to love the hard person. But God isn't just looking at this physical world. He wants us to be ready to live an eternal life of love and fulfillment, of freedom. And so he's encouraging us to do the things that aren't always easy to do. But sometimes these experiences that God is trying to teach us with and trying to help us to grow with, they're not the easy ones. These are usually the ones that if we don't go into with a good perspective, or we don't try to figure out what God is teaching us, we can leave with resentment. Or we can leave feeling frustrated. We can leave wanting to blame other people for why we went through that. I want to talk about why this makes a difference in our life. What kind of a difference can living with faith make? So I had an experience when I was on my missions program. Hi, Kenzo-san. Kenzo-san was one of my mentors and leaders in my missions program. And I had gone through a couple years of it myself. I was more as a participant. I was learning, and I was being guided a lot. I was being poured into a lot, received a lot of love. And then I came into a position of more of a leadership role, where I was going, for the first time, I was going to have my own team of people that I was going to take care of, and that I was going to try to be responsible for, so that they could then understand their relationship with God, have a good experience, get inspired about what they could contribute to society and to the world and to God. It was very exciting, very stressful time. And I finally, the time came, I got my first team, and what I really wanted to do, my prayer was, God, I want to inspire these girls so that they can do so much for you. That was my prayer. But I'll tell you, this group that I got was the most struggling group of girls I've ever met. And I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. But these girls, oh my goodness, one of them, two of them had actually joined later. Usually you start at the beginning of the year. At the end of the summer, it's the beginning of the missions program year. And they joined in the middle of fall. So they lost all that experience of the beginning of learning the basics and getting eased into it. They were just kind of thrown into it in the middle onto my team. There was another girl who she had joined this missions program as like an escape from her family. She didn't want to be there. And then she would schedule a time away from the missions program, which she told us was to go visit her parents, but was actually going to go visit her boyfriend that she didn't want to tell her parents about. And then there was another girl who was just so, she didn't know her value. She didn't know how to, she felt like she didn't know how to even exist in the world. She just got so overwhelmed. And one day she threw a box of Bibles and Divine Principles up to the front of the van and stormed out and locked herself in a bathroom in a truck stop and didn't come out for hours. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is not what I was picturing, what this was going to look like, you know. So my prayer changed a little bit. In my mind, I'd had it that I was going to, you know, we were all going to be like a team, and we were going to be on fire for God, and we were going to change the world, and we're falling apart. But my prayer changed to, God, let me help these girls. I don't know what they need. And I don't know what is my role here. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm trying to do everything I'm supposed to do, and it's not turning out the kind of results that I want to see with them. I felt completely incapable. But I felt like it was a little bit of surrender, of giving space to God. Be like, God, I know you want something to happen here. I thought I knew what it was, but maybe I don't. But I'm here. I'm ready to do whatever I need to do, so use me in this situation. And I found that two things happened out of this. First of all, that when we create a space for God, right? I didn't get overwhelmed by the situation. I wanted to stand as somebody who was caring and loving, and I wanted to stand as a channel to God to these girls. But I also didn't try to force them to have the kind of results that I wanted them to have. I felt like there was a moment where it was very stressful for me, but I was able to create a space and just be like, God, I'm here. Do what you need to do here. And two things happened. I found that I could become a blessing to somebody else without my even realizing it. And that actually God was going to work on me too. So what I realized these girls needed, and this was after the fact, you know, they finally finished their time on my team. Actually, most of them ended up going home and leaving the missions program. So at first I thought, I'm a failure. They came here to find God, and I ended up sending them home. But actually, through the experiences that we went through and through the conversations that we had about the difficulties that they were in, all of these girls ended up calling home. And they called their parents, and they had honest conversations with their parents that they had never had in their life. They came clean to their parents. They said, you know, I've got this boyfriend that I've been seeing that I didn't want to tell you about. And, you know, I felt like that you never really saw me, so that's why I came here to this program, to escape. But actually, all I really want is for you to see me who I am. And all of these girls went back to their home, and I had two of them about 10 years after I graduated and after we left the program and after everything was over. I had two of them message me out of the blue and say, hey, I never thanked you for being there for me when I was going through one of the most difficult times in my life, when I didn't know what to do and I didn't think I was valuable and I didn't think anybody would understand me. You were just there, and I felt God through you. And I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but thank you. But I realized that they had prayers, they had things on their hearts, And that God somehow, through my creating a space, was able to answer their prayers. But that God also answered my prayers, and I learned a lot. I realized that it's not always, the best thing for us isn't always what we think is the best thing for us. The result that I want is not, if I just got that result, maybe I'd be missing something very crucial and important. Like, I wanted these girls to be like bright and shiny and gung-ho, and we were doing a fundraising condition, so bringing in the most money, or, you know. But if they had done that and not made crucial connections with their parents, then where would have been the value in that? So I learned that we can't skip steps. And I learned the value of God working in the very small, minute details in our life. And to not get discouraged with where I'm at, because God is working with me where I'm at so that I can do more later. But this is in the realm of faith, right? Who would know, just looking at the external circumstances, where this would take us in our life? I know for those girls that connecting with their parents, of course, is important, but what I've also realized is that our relationship with our parents is many times how we see our relationship with God. And that those girls, without connecting to their parents, would never be able to understand God is a truly loving parent, because they didn't know that their parents truly loved them and accepted them. I have one more quote here. I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. And I want to go back to the first one again. If this works. Almost. There we go. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So all of this is to say, it's okay where you're at. If you feel less than, or maybe you're a little bit on the other side, a little bit on the arrogant side. Look at everything I've done. In plenty or in want. But our true happiness doesn't come from getting rid of the things that are bothering us in our life, or in getting all the things that are supposed to make us happy in life. But it's in creating this space in whatever circumstances that we're in, for God to be present and for us to have what my religions teacher always encourages us, a true religious experience. And you can take the word religion out of there, an experience, a real life experience with God. We don't have to have any amount of money or success or car in our life to have a religious experience, to know God, to let God work in our life. But it's our life of faith that allows us to create that space, because otherwise we just get overwhelmed by life happening to us, or by trying to control life so much so that it doesn't bother us, right? We have to leave some space for God to work in our life. But when we do that with intention and with faith, then we find the power to act powerfully in those moments that can create a totally different future for ourselves. Many times I was thinking about how I'd read this book, The Power of Now. Anybody read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? Yeah, it's a wonderful book. He's a brilliant man. And in this book, there's so much. It's really about like being completely present in the moment, just experiencing where you're at, 100%, because that's all we really have, right? The past is already gone. The future hasn't happened yet. So if we're not living 100% in the moment, then we're not really living. But I think that there is another perspective to add to that. Living 100% in the moment, but not just experiencing what is happening to me, but actually with the intention that God is working in my life right now. If I'm open to God working in my life right now, which is all I have, then I know that God will create goodness in my life out of this. I may want things to happen in the future, but I can't actually control that. I think we've learned that this year. We all had an idea of what 2020 would look like, and maybe it looks different, right? We don't actually have control over that. But I can only control what I have right in front of me. And I can't even necessarily control the things. I can just control myself. I can control my attitude, my perspective, my prayer, and what I can give in this moment. But with a perspective of faith or a life of faith, when we're acting on faith, our actions in this moment will be different than they would have been without it. And those different actions will create different results in my future and in the future of other people around me. That's what I was trying to get at. I was like, where's my moment here? I've got something I really wanted to say, and that's where it came out. God works we can see how God worked in our past. God wants to work in our future, but all God really has to work with is me right now. And if I allow for that, rather than just getting overwhelmed or trying to control, then God absolutely will work with me to create beauty, truth, and goodness in my life, and it will expand it to the lives of those around us. So that, I believe, is the power of faith in our life. And it doesn't matter where you're at. You're okay right now where you're at because God is working with you right now. So with that, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you so much for a beautiful fall morning. God, it's just so wondrous how you've created this earth to move through the seasons as we move through the stages in our life. And through the changing of the seasons, God, you show us that there is beauty in all the stages of our life. Sometimes they're growing, sometimes they're letting go. But I believe that this world is a teacher for us, and that you want to show us how you want to work in our life. Whatever season that we are in today, Heavenly Parent, I pray that we can intentionally remember that you are our parent. We may think we have so much understanding, but God, you are our parent. You see not only what's going on in this physical world, but you see the spiritual laws at work. You see the next world, and you are guiding us with love through our life. I pray that we can believe that you are guiding us toward goodness, guiding us to create goodness for other people. And that if we believe that you are working in our life, that we will create the space for that. And who knows what kind of miracles you will create, Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much for your patience with us as we grow and as we pass through the phases of our life. Heavenly Parent, I just pray that we can when we face our difficulties, or when we feel like we're drowning a little bit, or when we feel like we just want to control everything, that we can just take a minute and remember that you are our God, you are our parent, you love us, and I pray that we can create the space for you to work in our life, Heavenly Parent. And then when we create that space, then we will touch your heart and touch your love. And God, that is the only thing that can really heal us of our pain and our difficulties, that can really guide us towards our next step. And we can trust it can be true, Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much for being our loving parent. I pray that we can create that space, that we can give that love to others this week. I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, bless and show family. Amen and adieu.